I don't want to spend too much time on this simply because I'm not an expert in it.
Gold miners weren't doing so hot.
If you've got a whole lot of rental properties in London or in Britain, I would ask why.
Dividends aren't always constant.
When you take an individual risk on a stock, so a stock could be highly leveraged, well, there's a lending risk.
What the dividends are likely to be over the next 5 years.
Moving assets out of the Western financial system. We have discussed multiple times about the importance of moving assets out of the Western financial system. I have been living in the UK and had my IB account domiciled there. Since I have recently moved to Singapore, would opening an IB account domiciled in Singapore and transferring my positions from the UK account make any difference? That's from Thomas.
No, it wouldn't. What we're referring to here isn't so much about an IB account per se, it's about how you structure yourself. I don't want to spend too much time on this simply because I'm not an expert in it. However, I would strongly suggest a couple of things. Go and read up on the 5 flags principle. Things like where your brokerage account is held, if you've got it in a company and that company is owned by a trust and in what jurisdiction, all that sort of thing. It gets quite in depth, and it's also very much dependent on your own circumstances, where you happen to be domiciled personally and all these sorts of things. That's what I'm referring to. The other very obvious one, that's probably the easiest one, is physical land, real estate. For example, if you've got a whole lot of rental properties in London or in Britain, I would ask why. Just saying, I was just saying to Brad that passing some law where they can just come and take them if you're not. Anyway, it's completely bananas. It's nuts. It's nuts. Anyway, so those are the easy things. Real estate, fixed real estate in some of these jurisdictions. I would, again, I'm not here to tell everyone what to do. However, my opinion would be to reevaluate the safety or the risk component behind owning those fixed assets in Western jurisdictions. Some are better than others, of course, and don't necessarily have the time to go in depth into every single country, jurisdiction, and so on and so forth. But as a broad spectrum topic, that is, I think, worth considering. Go and read up on the 5 flags principle. It's been around for decades. I think it was Harry Brown in the 80s or something put the principle out. It's worked very well ever since, and it's like a template as to how one would conduct their affairs.
Very good. Let's move on. Precious metals allocation. Hello, gentle question for the monthly webinar. Now the theme gold and silver has been merged into the new precious metals theme. Should we allocate max 5% of the capital on each of the ETFs, gold and silver, or less now that they're combined into a single theme? Thanks. That's from Antonio.
I think the question comes down to how much you're going to allocate towards the precious metals theme. I mean, 10% is probably fine. I mean, how are you going about do that, whether it's, 3% towards silver, 3% towards gold, 4% towards gold miners, something like that. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, but the more important question is allocation. Just want to sort of highlight, it's all very well talking about increasing allocation now, but probably the better measure is, going back a couple of years when gold miners weren't doing so hot. Anyway, I think these things are going to go way, way higher. The other thing to keep in mind here, folks, is like, you can take your allocation up 10%, but then that takes away allocation from other stuff, if that makes sense. Okay, let's move on.
Beta for portfolios. Hi guys, our portfolios in the dividend and growth seem to be seen by their very asymmetric nature quite non-correlated with the S&P and should not go up and down as much as the S&P 500 or Russell 2000 stocks, simply because large institutional investors do not look into these areas where you guys look. Checking on interactive brokers, not able to see what the beta would be. Would you be able to provide such a calculation? Thanks. That's from John V.
I think, after all these years, I've been a practitioner, instead of theoretical, theorizing about stuff. actually in the field, I don't think really beta, well, perhaps we're not looking in the right directions, but from what we can gather, beta hasn't really helped us. We'll just look at stocks or sectors on their own merits and go, yeah, well, what's the upside there, potential, so on and so forth. We don't really take into account beta. I guess naturally the things we buy are going to be more volatile than what you see in the S&P 500, but that's probably just a reflection of the lack of liquidity in many of the stuff we're buying. I wouldn't. Anyway, I digress. The betas don't really help us, put it that way. Too technical. Maybe it's above our heads.
Okay, very good. Income portfolio. When to hold/cut. Hello, thanks for all the help so far. Quick question about the income portfolio. What is the basis for holding or cutting your investments? Is there a yield threshold you're looking for? And how much slack will you give companies if their dividends change? For example, Thungela Resources recently made big cuts to its dividend payout. Thanks, that's from Anthony.
Yep, that's a very good question. As all these questions are, of course. Dividends aren't always constant. And when you get a constant flow of dividends, the stocks tend to be priced, there's a premium paid for that. Anyway, so we do try and cut companies a lot of slack. Just because a dividend is cut in 1 year doesn't mean to say we're going to ditch the stock. I think what we try and do is make an assessment, and maybe this is subjective, of what the dividends are likely to be over the next 5 years. So it's not just here and now, it's what we're likely to see over the next 5 years. With coal miners, unless we see a massive increase in supply come online, I don't think things are going to change too much.
All right, very good. Interactive Brokers Stock Yield Enhancement Program. Do you use the Stock Yield Enhancement Program in your personal IB account to earn extra income? I've never activated that option because it essentially allows others to short your stock and it exposes you to additional risk in case the broker goes bust. Not to mention, depending on your location, dividends in lieu could be taxed at higher rates than regular dividends. I've noticed that the amount they pay you doesn't seem to be worth the risk, but I'm interested in hearing your opinion. That's from James.
When you take an individual risk on a stock, right? So a stock could be highly leveraged. Well, there's a lending risk. You're taking that risk with that one specific stock, and you can decide what sort of weighting of that risk you want, 5%, 1%, 2%, whatever. But letting your entire portfolio go down that path doesn't inspire me as that for the reward that you get. Frankly, doesn't seem that exciting.